we hope that this will be interesting and useful for you and for us. As Arnaud said, we will be also asking you a few questions at the end. So let's go. Well, in France, I think like in most of the European countries, there are more and more homeless people. And in France, there are a lot of solutions that exist to help them, including food distribution, shelters, and so on. But most of the time, it does not. There is no solution to help them to remobilize and to go in long-lasting solutions. Most of them stay for a long time in the street, and of course they are very deeply injured, and they need to have some help to solve the difficulties, because they are broken physically, they are broken mentally. Well, you all know the situation, but it's also the case in France. And at Convergence France, we are convinced that work is a powerful lever to break the vicious circle that the homeless people have been trapped into. It helps them to recover social status, to get a wage slip, and with working, by working, they are included in a social group again. So we believe that starting with work is even if it comes before providing a shelter, has a strong aspect on their strong impact on their empowerment. But in France, there are already some integration organizations that offer work to people, but most of the time they hire persons who are less in difficulties than homeless people, because offering work to homeless people is really difficult. It means that you have to adapt a lot of things in your organization. And well, to sum up, you know, this kind of solutions, offering work to people, is it already exists, but it's not accessible to the homeless one. So already in 2008, we realized that we needed to make some adaptation to the work-based integrations organization, and we created an NGO which was called Emmaüs Défi, and the mission of Emmaüs Défi was to hire only homeless people, and we started using the traditional methodologies of the sector. But very soon we realized that if we stayed with the normal way of work of the work-based integration organization in France, we could not manage to adapt to this person. And we designed a new type of program, which is acting as a springboard, like a very short time period, but so that the homeless people could start a working activity, but going at their own rhythm. So they begin with a few hours a week, and they progressively increase it, with no expectation in terms of productivity. And this is what we call the Premières Heures en Chantier, or the first working hours. During the first years, so as I said, starting in 2008, we experimented this program. We led external evaluations, we measured the impact, we made it evolve. And after a few times, it had good results. So we continued. During the first period, let's say during the first 10 years, it was mainly developed in Paris. But in 2018, we decided to share our knowledge and technologies with other work-based organizations. And this is why we created our NGO Convergence France in 2019 to share this knowledge and methodologies, we convinced the government, the French government, to integrate our program in the national strategy against poverty. At this time, it was an experimentation for them, but this recognition gave us the legitimacy and the means to deploy our program at the national level. So to be clear, the French government gave us also money to make these programs all around France. And it also gave us the possibility to make the regulation evolve, because some aspects were still difficult to manage, and we needed to facilitate the operationalization of Premières Heures en Chantier in other work-based organizations. So this is what we are doing now since 5 years at Convergence France. But how does Premières Heures en Chantier work? There are a few principles that are really important to make the remobilization efficient. So first of all, the recruitment is made without selection criteria. So it's really everybody can come and work in Premières Heures en Chantier if they have necessary documents. So, of course, this is the only condition, but the identification of the salaries of the workers, the identification of the workers is not made by the employer. It is made by a network of social workers who are like prescribers. So these are the social workers that are already in the street, who know the person living in the street, and these social workers prescribe Premières Heures en Chantier to the future workers. So this is the first point, recruitment without selection criteria. The second principle, which is really important, is what we call the co-working. To make Premières Heures en Chantier, we hire a new social worker who is called socio-professional educator. And this educator works with the person. So there is a new relationship which is created on the field, and it builds trust that is usually quite difficult to build when you have face-to-face in the office of a social worker. So it is really a new approach to be on the field to make the education work, with very low expectation of productivity, which is also important. It means that the activity that is offered or that the workers have to do is not does not need to be very efficient. So if some person comes and can produce a lot, then it's okay, it's great. But if some person comes, they did not sleep during the night, or they are drunk, or the situation is too difficult for them, then it's not an issue. The expectation of productivity is not at the heart of the system. So this is the second principle, the co-working. The third principle I want to mention is adaptation and progressiveness, because it's very important to adapt to the person's abilities and rhythm. So they start with half-day work at the beginning, and they increase step by step up to 20 hours a week. The idea is to start little, to put the person in the situation of success. Of course, the work is rewarded by a salary, which can be paid in cash during the first month, for example, to really have this reward effect. And then, step by step, at the salary's rhythm, we offer the worker to increase the time he works during the week. So this is adaptation and progressiveness, because for each worker, the rhythm is different, and we design it one by one, working together with the social workers, which prescribed before. So we are still very connected with the other workers, the other social workers. And this is the fourth principle I want to mention, which is multidisciplinary support, because the social worker, the social professional educator, which is hired for the program, does not support the person alone. He works in very close collaboration with the social worker of accommodation system, with the social workers, the prescribers one, who stay always in contact with the person. And this is all very important to connect all the person who are supporting the worker to make this multidisciplinary support. So all these four principles help the people to go through the different obstacles that were most of the time very difficult to tackle, and sometimes it even helps to detect some of the obstacles that the person did not notice herself. It helps the person to regain social status. It makes possible the development of psychosocial skills. And most important, it demonstrates to the person that he or she can do it. So it proceeds to the person's re-empowerment, and helps him or her to make self-projections again. For today, we have more than 75 projects all around France, and we are still working close with the French government, and we plan to go on developing new projects in the next years. If we look at the employees level, as I said, the program have impact on in terms of self-esteem, empowerment, but we also can give a few figures. So, for example, I can say that more than 70% of people who follow Premières Heures en Chantier and who are living in a street find a shelter during the program. So 7 of 10. 42% of people go on after Premières Heures en Chantier in a work-based integration organization or in traditional company. So they go on working and they continue their integration way to classical work. And if we speak about health, 80% of the people who have health problem agree to be supported on this topic. So of course we cannot heal the person, but we can help them to get support for their illness, and this is what we do for 80% of them. So it shows that Premières Heures en Chantier not only on getting a shelter, but also to go on working, and also on health system, on health situation. I can give also other example, but maybe the best solution is to look at a few testimonies, and we prepared a small video to let the workers speak about what they experience.
Okay, I will try to share it now. Thank you, Rémi. So, look.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Chantier, and before working at Convergence France, I was a social professional educator on the first working hours scheme, an association called CAPEP in Valenciennes in the north of France for 3 years. I've had the opportunity to work with dozens of homeless people over the last 3 years. As a result, I've been able to be observed at close quarter the effects of remobilization through works and the benefits of the support, which is specific to first working hours scheme. Having worked as a street educator in shelters and in day centers in the past, for example, I've been able to see the complementarity and added value of this scheme with what's already existed to support homeless people. In a few minutes, I'm going to tell you about the effects that this scheme has had on the association where I worked, as well on the partners and therefore the local area. Before that, to follow on from this video, I'm going to tell you a bit about two people I worked with during those 3 years and the effect that the work and social and professional support had on their lives. Firstly, Ludivine, who was 33 when she signed her contract. She had been on the street for around 10 years. She was addicted to alcohol and several narcotics, as well as some medication. She slept outdoors, often had problems related to violence, and no longer saw her 12-year-old daughter. On the day she signed her contract, Ludivine wanted to call her daughter to tell her that mom is working. After several weeks, Ludivine agreed to live in the shelter, began to reduce her drug and alcohol consumption considerably, and gradually rebuilt her relationship with her daughter. At the same time, she frequently went to the hairdresser, rebuilt her wardrobe, and simply started to look at herself and take care of herself again. After a year in the scheme, Ludivine was seeing her daughter on a weekly basis, had stabilized her addiction. She had a traditional work and found herself living in a small house. Now I'm going to talk about Germain. Germain had been homeless for over 15 years and alcohol dependent for over 20. Until then, he had categorically refused to be housed in shelters, to be supported in any treatment process, or even to redo his administrative documents, such as his identity card. Germain quickly went from working 4 hours a week to 20 hours a week and really worked hard during his hours. After a few months, he realized that his alcohol consumption and street life wouldn't allow him to continue working outside first working hours scheme. That was the turning point on his career. First of all, he agreed to make all his administrative documents and see a doctor again. Next, he agreed to stay in shelter before making several appointments with the doctor. He then accepted accommodation in a shelter, making several hospital appointments to work on his alcohol addiction. After a year's contract, Germain went to hospital for 3 weeks to wean himself of alcohol. He then moved to a specialized shelter for people coming out of treatment. Germain has now been alcohol-free for 2 years and worked near Lille. Whether it was Ludivine, Germain, or anyone else who offered this contract, they were all astonished. For many of them, signing the contract itself was a moment of self-esteem and renewed self-confidence. It was then that they realized that they had what we like to call at Convergence France the right to restart. So we understand that work and increasing the number of hours can lead to a large number of things, in the sense that the simple fact of going from 4 hours to 8 hours for people who may have addiction problems, for example, will lead to work being done without necessarily being aware of it. It will happen gradually and naturally. In this way, the work will have to identify such a problem, which means that at the time we recruit them, these people are not in position to work in ordinary way. I'm going to talk about the various impacts first working hours has had in the north of France. The first impact that I've been able to observe since first working hours on SCAPEP's integration service is the impact it had on the various technical supervisors who weren't necessarily used to working without that kind of group. All parts of the social field has been developed. There's a whole acculturation of the street population that wasn't there before and that naturally took place with the first working hours scheme. Even though we can see today that the public is becoming more and more precarious. In fact, we can make more and more links between the problem faced by people on the first working hours scheme and those who may be in traditional integration work sites. As far as the project itself was concerned, we had a few concerns at the start. We didn't know how well the people on traditional integration work sites would take to being mixed up with the street population. In the end, we don't really see the difference anymore. Where I used to work, we decided to mix the first working hours team with people on conventional integration worksite. The tasks are the same, and we realize that it pulls everyone up. There's a real sensitivity that's been created around this choice group, and everyone is now working with them to ensure that the project runs as smoothly as possible. On the larger scale, there's also been an impact on the CAPEP association itself, which had various services. In particular, there was a training department and support department for people on social minimums. Our social referent colleagues who work with people on social minimums, for example, are increasingly having to deal with people who are in precarious situation. Before first working hours, there weren't necessarily any resources available in-house, whether for food parcel or requests of that kind. The fact that first working hours came into being within this association with all the network of partners and all the resources we now have has enabled colleagues in other departments to take advantages of it and therefore to pass on the benefits to the people they support. Beyond the association itself is the whole partnership network that has been impacted by this scheme. I realized when I started working on the partnership network that very few professionals knew anything about work integration. During my 3 years of training as a specialized educator, I was never once told about work integration. This explains why social workers don't have the reflex to think about remobilization through work. It's true that in France, we still have this culture of saying that we'll go through accommodation and housing first, and then we'll see about work if we think about it. The fact that we came back with this key and went all the partners to explain the first working hours scheme to them has changed practices. The scheme is now clearly recognized by everyone. There has been a real change in the way professionals looked at things. It's no longer surprising that a person who is going to be homeless can work, even if it starts with 4 hours a week. Now accepted that this can be the start of support, the start of social and professional integration. We can start with work and work our way up to addiction, health, housing, and everything else that might follow. Even if it took a few months, it was a real change in the practices of the professional involved in the project. We can see this today because beyond first working hours, it has also enabled the world of work integration to become more visible to all the partners in shelters or daycare centers for roof sleepers. They can easily take steps to ensure that people living in emergency shelters or in day centers can join first working hours or traditional integration work sites. This was not the case a few years ago in this area. It's really this first working hour scheme that has given professionals this knowledge and therefore this opportunity for the people we support. It gives the social advisors a new approach and a different entry point to social support. It's seen in the way that the link between the social professional educator and the social advisors in the various structures really enables comprehensive and enhanced support for people. The social professional educator is in contact with people on an increasingly daily basis and can identify problems or make observations about daily life at work. The social advisor assists with the procedures and implementation of the person overall support. This is how the scheme can bring about change in attitude and practice at a local level. The homeless in the area now that they have the opportunity to work. I often met people on the street who ask me how they could sign a contract. Similarly, social workers now have a new way of looking at support and of seeing work as a tool for getting people back on their feet and providing social and professional support. Starting with the homeless people, working through the association on the partners' first working hours has breathed new life into this area and give another way for people to exercise their right to restart.
Thank you very much, Mohamed. So this was a look from the field, and now just to finish, a few words from public partners, because I said just before that we work close with the French government, but we also work with public institutions, with local institutions, And we asked Céline Herbin, who works in Lille, European Metropolis, to say a few words. So, Céline, can you give us a quick introduction to the Lille European Metropolis first, please?
Yes, thank you for including me in this presentation of Premières Heures en Chantier. The MEL is a public institution for inter-municipal cooperation that bring together 95 municipalities around the city of Lille. The area borders Belgium and has a population of 1.2 million with a poverty rate of 19%. The MEL has 20 areas of responsibility for the living environment, regional planning, territorial and social development, and the promotion of the region. With the responsibility of housing, the MEL has been involved in the accelerated implementation of the Housing First policy since 2018. The national plan is based on 5 main priorities: producing and mobilize affordable housing, speeding up access to housing, supporting people, preventing breakdown, and mobilize regions. It's in this capacity that we are supporting Premières Heures en Chantier.
Yes, I just want to add that you support Premières Heures en Chantier since more than 4 years. And why is MEL a partner of Convergence France, and why does MEL support first working hours?
Yes, the MEL has been supporting Premières Heures en Chantier since 2020. We decided to co-finance the program with the state and the North Department for 3 main reasons. Firstly, it meets an unmet need, the possibility of offering people who have been on the streets a chance to return to work at their own pace and without any productivity constraint, like Rémi said. Secondly, Premières Heures en Chantier offers homeless people comprehensive social support based on integration through economic activity, but which also integrate needs in terms of access to rights, housing, and health. In other words, Premières Heures en Chantier deploys the principle of housing first. Finally, Premières Heures en Chantier enables new partnerships between professionals of work-based integration structures and social workers of accommodation system. And of course, this is necessary, but not so common.
Yes, in your opinion, what are the strengths of Convergence France as a pilot of first working hours?
In my opinion, the way in which Convergence France has developed Chantier meets the expectations of a local authority like MEL. Premières Heures en Chantier complements the possibilities offered by the region's work-based integration structures, which work together and pool their skills through the coordination of the association L'Union. And the methodological framework proposed by Convergence France enables local partners to adapt their collective action to local conditions and people's needs. In Lille, for example, the association L'Union has included psychologists to meet mental health needs. And finally, from the outset, Convergence France has monitored and evaluated the program closely, and above all, has ensured that it has evolved in line with feedback from the partner at the various sites in France. The observations of local partners are taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Céline, and thank you again for your support for all these years. We have been to the end of what we intended to present. We are a little bit late, Arnaud. Do we still have time to get a few Q&A?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we still have time.
Some people wrote some reactions, but no real questions. So feel free.
I don't think we have any questions in the chat. We had some comments. You can write in the chat, but also you can speak directly. If you raise your hands, we can identify you. I see one question. You can, yeah.
Hey guys, thank you very much. Fascinating presentation. Very challenging as well. I just had a few questions just to understand the program a bit more. What kind of work is offered? I saw kind of farming mentioned in the video, but what's the range of work offered? Second question, kind of who pays for the work? Do employers contribute? Is it fully funded by statutory agencies? And then third, I was quite interested, you mentioned briefly there's a requirement to have documents. Do you find that this is accessible to migrants, given they're quite an increasing proportion of the kind of rough sleeping population? I should have said I'm Ewan from DePaul International, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So just to say a few words about the kind of work, maybe you want to answer, or I can go on.
There's a lot of support. There's some work of wood. There's some
farming,
agriculture, yes.
Yeah, farming, agriculture, wood.
Maybe one of the main that we have is reuse, recycling and reuse of some goods in some charity shops. So collect, sell, sort and sell goods that are given by anyone.
Yeah. Urban cleanliness.
Yes, urban cleanliness. We also have some works like maintenance of streets and of espaces verts, green spaces. Thank you. Sorry for our English.
Sorry, recycling.
Yes, recycling. So that's this kind of things. Actually, we have quite a lot of different support, but always, some very simple works that do not need a lot of qualification to start. The idea is that even if we work with with an organization that has, for example, we have projects in some restaurants, so it seems to be quite difficult work. But always we have to look for what kind of small activity can we find in the whole organization, so that the person, when the person arrives, he could start working within a few minutes or hours, and feel useful very soon. And you asked about the legal situation. Yes, this is the only limit that we have in France. We cannot offer Premières Heures Chantier to people who are not in a legal situation and who do not have the right to work in France. So it means that migrants that did not get the status of refugee cannot work. So that is the limit. That there is almost no solution in France to earn money legally from work for migrant people. So that's it.
Second question was qui paye.
And about the economical part. So as I said, in France we have a global sector which is working with the French government. So the French government brings some money to the organizations to help them pay the wages. And then the local institutions like Lille European Metropolis, who Céline Bank comes from, they also give some support to help financing the other fees. So globally speaking, there is almost no money coming from the work itself. And actually, right from the beginning, we believe that we should not build the system with expecting some money from the work, because if you expect some money from the work, then you have to find people who are able to produce. And if you want people able to produce, then you select. And the idea is that we will not select from the ability to produce. So that is a strong philosophy for us. But I'm quite aware that this is possible in France because we have quite helpful public institutions and support.
And there is a question in the chat about longitudinal study. I don't think there are anything existent so far.
No, I don't think there are studies measuring the combination of housing first and working first. But our experience is that they are really complementary. And that for some people, housing first is the best approach. For some people, working first is better to make the first remobilization step. But when we are in some areas where the two policies work together very well, we can see that actually we need both together. And this is really interesting that in Lille, they support working first with the housing first policy. But maybe Céline, if you want to add something.
It doesn't.
I don't know if I have a question. I have a question also. Maybe somebody in the audience has some similar program, or if you have developed some kind of other projects where you make this kind of working first for very excluded person. I would be really interesting. And maybe this is a way for me to open another point and say that if you have this kind of project already, or if you would like to think about developing it, and if you believe that having some time together to speak about it more specifically could be helpful, we would be really interested in sharing experience and to learn from you, and if we can, to help your project.
Today we don't have a big crowd, so maybe it's only the very motivated ones that are here today. There's another question, maybe. I don't know if it's from my boss, so I don't think we are launching any kind of work integration program. Ruth, you want to say it, or you want me to read it?
Maybe I can just say it. Mohammed mentioned that in his experience, it actually works quite well when the Premières Heures team and the mainstream work integration services work together. And I wondered if that is like the long-term future for the model, that mainstream work integration services have workers within them who are more aware of homelessness and more able to support homeless people, or whether it's best to have the two separate.
Good question.
Yeah. Well, actually, for now, we are always working together with existing integration organization, work-based integration organization, because they already know a lot. They already have a lot of equipment. All the organization exists, and in our experience, we have been trying twice or 3 times to start a project out of existing work-based integration organization, and it was so difficult. It's difficult to start it, but also it's difficult for the project to go on because the people need to be connected. The Premières Heures en Chantier workers need to be connected to the rest of the integration organization to make it smooth to go from Premières Heures to the classical integration organization. So we are really convinced that we have to connect the project together. So in France, there are like 5,000 integration work-based organization. So I do not believe that 5,000 of them will make Premières Heures en Chantier, but I believe that we have to connect with the few ones that are motivated in this project.
We have another question or comment in the chat. I see that Céline wrote something to say that there was an example of Premières Heures en Chantier based on the housing first principles, I think. And it reminds me of an interesting conversation I had with Dial, the French delegation, interministerial delegation, who told me that maybe, because I used to say Premières Heures en Chantier is a working first program. And then they were like, yes, it's working first on some basis, but also because it's not work in a common field of work, like a normal job, it cannot be called working first. I don't know if you agree with that or if you don't. I don't want to create like conflicts, but that was an interesting conversation that I had with Dial, and maybe you had some thoughts about it.
Dial, elle dit que c'est qu'on ne peut pas parler de working first parce que c'est pas dans les droits communs.
Yeah. Thank you.
Pas encore.
Yes. That's exactly the answer I was going to give, because actually now Premières Heures en Chantier is still considered as an experimentation, but we are working quite closely with national institutions and government to try to move from this experimentation category. So I believe that we have to be a normal part of the solutions and to be in the common solutions.
I think that when we are talking about first working, it's the way of the first key to support the people. It's not. It's on fait de. Attends, je galère. C'est juste une clé d'entrée. On commence par ça.
Yeah, it's just an excuse. Yeah. Like the DL say, it's not traditional work. Of course, it's not traditional work, and we don't pretend giving them a normal job. But it's a key, and it's an excuse to work a lot of different other levels. Like, and first of them is housing. So in a way, we agree with the DL, but in another way, we disagree. Is that a good answer, Arnaud?
Sorry?
In a way, we disagree with the DL, but in another way, we agree. Like,
okay, it makes sense.
Like it's not a traditional work, but it's starting working again and connecting with other people again, and starting to get self-esteem before having a job. Like everybody has a job.
Thank you. There's another question or comment from Ruth. In Finland, there is a comparable program to Premières Heures that is offered to people alongside rehousing in Housing First, run by the Y Foundation. Yeah. So it's that's a program that is really connected with the Housing First policies in that case. Also Convergence France, but it can work separately. I don't know if anyone has another question or comments. If not, that's perfectly fine. I think we planned 20 minutes of Q&A, so that's about it. I just wanted to say that it's quite new for EPOCH practice and also Fianza to explore the links and connections between employment and homelessness. So it's a first, let's say. And we know that the connection between those two fields are not always done right. And also that some people it's not in the best, sometimes it's not in the best interest of the people. So I think it was Trust Working Hours was a good example to begin with. And thank you for that presentation. Now to close the webinar, I'm inviting two speakers to react on this presentation and also explain a bit more about their work. The first person is Nada Brady. She works for Fédération des Acteurs de la Solidarité, which is a French federation. And the second person is Baptiste Vasseur from the European Network of Social Integration Enterprises. So maybe we can start first with Nada for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Arnaud. Is the sound okay? Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Nada Brady. I work for as Arnaud said, the Fédération des Acteurs de la Solidarité, the Federation of Solidarity Stakeholders. So I've been working there for 2 years, and I was previously working in the field of social and solidarity economy in various NGOs. So right now at the Federation, I am working specifically on the subject of integration through economic activity. And I'm here to present to you our Federation, discuss the working first approach in public policy and professional practices, and to present our work on developing connections between integration through economic activity and social support. So our Federation is a network of over 900 organizations that welcome and support people in precarious situations. It is made up of a national federation based in Paris, where I work, and 13 regional federations throughout France. So today we represent 2,800 organizations and services in the sectors of integration through economic activity, social monitoring, accommodation, adapted housing, medico-social, and in the welcoming of asylum seekers and refugees. Our mission at the Federation is to support our members, to advise them and to provide them with trainings. We also engage with public authorities to represent our members and to promote a more cohesive society. Also, we participate in projects of social innovation, several of which are supported by the state, such as the sessionv, an employment program that I will talk about later, and Respiration, which is a cultural program. And we are also a founding member of Convergence France. So our work is at the crossroads of co-constructing public policies, supporting the evolution of professional practices and the interconnection between the two. These past years, we have observed a shift in public policies moving toward the working first approach that you were talking about, inspired by the principle of housing first, which promotes a holistic view of social support centered on the individual needs. So the working first, it means that any supported person that wishes to work should have the right to do so and to be guided with an integration program that meets their needs. So, for instance, in the specific field of integration through economic activity, there was a reform in 2020 that allowed accommodation and adapted housing organizations to refer individuals that they support to integration through economic activity pathways, which helped reinforcing their role in social professional support. Also, in the broader field of job seeker integration, the National Strategy for the Prevention and Fight Against Poverty from 2017 to 2022 enabled the launch of 5 long-term unemployment pilot programs, including Convergence, First Working Hours, and sessionv, an employment program that our federation leads. So all these programs have in common that they are designed and developed at the grassroots level, and they have helped transform professional practices and broaden the range of solutions offered to individuals, always by placing them at the center of their pathway. We can also talk about the Coach Emploi program that was launched in 2019 by the Interministerial Delegation for Accommodation and Access to Housing, la DIAL, to test the working and housing first approach for people in temporary accommodation and to promote quick access to housing and or employment based on the individual's wishes and abilities. So it explores how working for the Federation, it explores how working first can be integrated into social support for people experiencing homelessness. So we can see that professional practices often drive changes in public policy. For instance, with the Convergence program, it was developed as a grassroots experiment to support a shift in professional practices, and it has since expanded with the aim of being integrated into mainstream policy. This is the same dynamic that applies to the sessionv program that we lead. So it's a program that aims to equip integration through economic activity teams with the tools to build stronger connections with mainstream businesses and to facilitate sustainable employment for the people that they support. So I think that it's interesting to see how employment can serve both as a tool for re-engagement, as it's in the case in the First Working Hours program, and also as an end in itself. And at the Federation, we believe that one does not exclude the other. On the contrary, it is essential to have a diversity of programs to meet the various needs of individuals. So we start with people needs, and employment is a tool that can be used differently depending on the situation. I also think it's important to say that through sessionv, our federation also emphasizes that eventually mainstream companies are the ones doing the hiring, and that they bear a responsibility to adopt more inclusive recruitment practices. This is what we refer to in French as employeurabilité. I don't know how to translate it in English, but the aim is to shift the narrative away from blaming job seekers and to focus instead on changing organizations and not individuals. Sorry. So besides from sessionv, we lead several projects to build stronger connections between integration through economic activity and social support. So for instance, in 2023, our federation launched a support plan to enhance employment-focused support in accommodation, housing, and integration organizations. So it was funded by the DIAL and implemented with one of our regional federations in the south of France. This support plan aims to improve access to housing and socio-professional integration for homeless individuals in line with the Housing First strategy and the full employment strategy of the French government. It also seeks to break down silos between accommodation and employment sectors to provide a more holistic support. So we know that there is a political will, but we also believe that it is not sufficient and that the evolution of professional practices and local cooperation must be supported through a partnership approach over time. So key actions of our support plan included offering individual and group support to 5 of our regional members, sharing knowledge and spreading best practices within our network, and providing insights and recommendations for the wider network and policymakers. So to say a few words about the best practices that we identified, They are mainly promoting local meetings, trainings on employment support, peer learning groups, joining the Self-Emploi program, and of course, partnerships with the Convergence Association. Also in 2023, our federation conducted an action research project to explore what helps or hinders people in accommodation programs from accessing integration through economic activity pathways. This study was carried out in the Bourgogne-Franche-Comté region by a consulting firm in collaboration with 3 of our members running accommodation and employment programs. The study also contributed to the evaluation of the Coach Emploi program that I talked about earlier and was launched in 2019. And it showed very positive results in terms of access to employment, a better understanding of the business world for some social workers, and a shift in how the people that are supported are perceived by social workers, because they are being placed at the center of their journey, and also it gives them a sense of agency. However, the study also showed that some professionals still resist the program because they believe that it's not right for people that they perceive as not being ready to work. So in conclusion, we can say that there is a need for greater mutual understanding between sectors to build a holistic social support. This can be done by various ways, for instance, field visits, exchange networks, better information and awareness for professionals. And we consider that interdisciplinary trainings should be promoted and that they should involve the people being supported, because this helps to frame employment as a tool for support and not just as an end goal. So as I said earlier, this is very important for us to promote a social support that starts from people's needs, with a diversity of programs that can apply to their various situations and wishes. So that's it for me. I hope it was clear. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Nada. It was very clear, very interesting, and you gave a large overview of what FAST was doing on this topic. So I think that's very interesting. Thank you. Baptiste, Vasseur, if you're here still, you can also have a word about what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arnaud. Thank you very much, Rémi, Céline, Mohamed, and Nada, for your very interesting presentations. Arnaud gave me a difficult part of the job, which was through our network, which I will explain a little bit later, to find some examples similar to the Convergence example. Very, very, very difficult task, and I will explain that a little bit later. I am Baptiste, working for the European Network of Work Integration Social Enterprises. So this is the terminology we use for the thing you are all trying to say: work-based organization, work integration. We call them Work Integration Social Enterprises, and the acronym we use is WISEs. So it's simpler to pronunciate for me today. And so WISEs exist all around the EU. We represent WISEs in 30 member states and in 30 countries, so a little bit more than EU member states. And we have more or less our members. We represent 3,000 WISEs in Europe. Within all these WISEs, we have sent via our newsletters and via email requirements if they have similar activities, and we have to say that no members really gave us feedbacks if they have examples similar to dispositif Premières Heures and Convergence, which is an interesting finding. Afterwards, we looked at our historical research, and what we've seen is that most of WISEs, whether they had house activities linked to housing activities, and they developed marginal work integration services for these people, but it was very informal. whether they were already targeting homeless people living homelessness, and they tried to foster activities related to work integration, but all that remained at a very, very informal maturity level, if I may say, in comparison with the examples that has just been presented today. So I am extremely pleased to attend to this webinar because it's for us pioneering, and it's an avant-garde example that we would love to see more in all other countries of the EU. And why it's so pioneering, it's because, as Rémi Tricard already explained a little bit, it's mainly because the ecosystem and the legal framework in France is particularly well advanced. We have to imagine that not in all the countries WISEs operate into a specific legal status. Not in all EU member states WISEs operate with public subsidies. So in France, the subsidy that was mentioned was the compensation wage for the recruitment of vulnerable workers, which is a very stable support that we don't often see in other member states for work integration, social forms of support. So this might be one first level of explanation why it's so hard to find some formalized examples. Also, the level of policy support. Here, I'm very pleased to see the Métropole Lilloise representing also their interest and their curiosity for and their forms of support for this type of example, because we see that this level of policy support is not so easy to find in other EU member states, financially speaking, but also in terms of development of the ecosystems, development of partnerships with other type of actors. Because WISEs, the three main guidelines for WISEs is to deliver a social support and having a social objective first. The second is to operate into the market and to sell goods or services, which imply a certain level of hybrid economic model, and to deliver such a high level form of social support similar to the Convergence model. The economic activity would be must be very, very, very well supported, and the autonomy of the economic support is a little bit negatively affected. So most of the organizations in the EU have a very much more intense form of economic activity, still in the same types of activity that has been mentioned in reuse, in circular economy, in green activities, social farming. We have also WISEs in social farming, but the level of labor intensity is a little bit higher, and a very, very definitive form of differentiation that we can do is that a very low level of WISEs in our federation have an exclusive target group. So here we see that Convergence exclusively support people suffering from homelessness, which is maybe the reason why of their innovative aspects, maybe the reason why they are so well advanced in terms of holistic approach and person-centered approach. Many of the WISEs in France, but also in other countries, don't have this exclusive targeted approach. So all that are some elements that help us understanding why we don't see similar examples in other countries. That being said, we would love to support Convergence, and also to bring the example of Convergence to call for more policy support in other EU member states, and most particularly at EU level, to see this example being replicated a little bit everywhere. So I've heard the call to develop more partnerships, and also to maybe enrich each other through our respective expertise. We would be happy to be part of it. Don't hesitate to contact us, and happy to take a little bit more questions from the audience.
We will do.
Thank you. Okay. So the connection is made perfect. I don't know if there is any reaction based on the presentations that we just had, or if Convergence France wants to react a bit more, then or not. If that's okay for you, I mean, we can end this webinar. I don't see any more questions. Perfect. So thank you for these presentations. Thank you to all the speakers today. And I wrote on my paper that we hope you will create some new bridges, but I already know that it's the case. So thank you very much. We will continue to work with you, Convergence France, on many different occasions. And just so you know, because the number of participants was quite low today, but for the study visit in Lyon, between the 4 different itineraries of visits, you were the most chosen. So, you know, depends on the activity. But so thank you very much, and I wish you a very good week. And yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.